Thank you for having me. I'm going to be speaking a bit for about 20-25 minutes about B2B marketing, PR, and communications, focusing more on the PR marketing side here. I know you have a bit later in the day a speech about key opinion leader marketing, influencer marketing, which is very important, and I didn't want to go too much in details here since you will be talking a bit about it later. Give you a bit of an introduction maybe about who I am and who we are at Influence Matters here. So this is me, Simon. I consider myself a PR guy, so a public relations specialist, which means doing what we call third-party validation, third-party communications. I'm a geek. I'm completely passionate about technology and the future of technology and what it enables in the future. And I am an entrepreneur since I am the founder of Influence Matters, the agency that I still run now. I've been in China for 19 years now. I spent 16 of those years in cross-border public relations. First at a big American firm when I was doing more Chinese companies going global, then in a smaller American firm where I was helping mostly American technology companies in China, and now as the founder of Influence Matters since a bit over 6 years ago, helping foreign B2B tech startups, scale-ups, SMEs, and unicorns with their market entry communications and market growth communications. On top of that, I'm the founder of a couple other things. One WeChat account, which is called Networking Matters, which is 14,000 followers. It's dormant right now, but Maddie is going to help me relaunch it very soon. Which is a platform to discover interesting networking events and technology in Beijing and Shanghai. I am the co-founder of the China Tech PR Network, which is a B2B network for PR and marketing professionals. And I am the co-founder of the French Tech Beijing, and I was the vice president until a couple months ago when I left my seat on the board. The French Tech Beijing is a government-supported organization that promotes French technology and innovation around the world. I was the founder of the Beijing chapter. And there's a new team now that is very active in running this. That gives you also a bit of an idea of where I'm from. I'm French. So this is roughly about me and what I do and what we do at Influence Matters, technology and innovation communications in China. We have offices in Beijing and Shanghai, as you can see on the map. So we're a leading independent PR and marketing services agency in China for technology. That means that we focus completely on technology companies. And more than that, we focus on companies that innovate their own technology. So whether it's silicon or algorithms, so silicon for semiconductors, for example, algorithms for anything, blockchain or big data or anything else, those are companies that we're going to work with. And we're completely specialized in smaller types of companies, companies that usually have raised anywhere in between, let's say, $15 million and $300 million in the past 2 years. We focus on B2B technology. We do not do B2C. So all of our clients have customers in China that are going to be businesses. We consider ourselves a bridge for global innovators to Chinese influence. My team of about 20 people, which I mentioned here, my team of about 20 people are mostly Chinese, pretty much all Chinese except for Maddie and myself, but all have an international background. So they're all studied abroad and have been working for international firms for a while before joining us. So they're very experienced in understanding the rest of the world and China and being that translator here. And we like to say that we focus on effective and efficient communication strategies, supporting clear business objectives, which is one of the things that one of the reasons why I started this agency a couple of years ago, is because I felt the offer, the agencies in China that were helping foreign companies in China were not really aligned with what their business objectives was and weren't very efficient in communicating. So we're changing that by building a much more efficient approach that serve directly business objectives, which I'm actually going to mention a bit in the presentation. And we've been there since 2015. 2015 as a company. Just an overview of some of the companies that we've worked with in the past 6 years. There's 70 plus companies in there. Most of those you won't know the name because we focus on B2B, and a lot of these companies are in very small niches, but it's anything from semiconductor to services to game developers, big data, cloud, blockchain quite a bit, etc., etc. All right. So what I wanted to talk a bit and to start with was give a bit of a background on why we communicate and why companies should communicate, and why you as companies entering the Chinese market or considering the Chinese market should communicate, and then how you should approach the Chinese market with effective communications as you start. I'm really only looking at those companies that are considering to start in China, not those that have been there for a long time, because those should already have some experience and know the market. So why communicate? And I like to start with a quote, which is one of my favorite quotes of all times. It's been attributed to several people. I do believe that the first person that said it was Phil Knight, the chairman, the founder and chairman of Nike. You can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, what good is it? If you have a brilliant product, you've got those brilliant sneakers or this brilliant blockchain technology. If nobody knows about it, nobody's going to use it, and the business is not going to grow, and no one's going to use that. Sorry. So that's why we communicate, to let other people know why, what we do, why they should care about us. Just a quick refresher on the difference in between marketing and PR, public relations, of course, where PR is going to be you as a person or as a business saying, I am the best. My product is the best. You should buy it. So imagine Nike selling their shoes when they do an ad, or when they manage their Facebook page, and they're going to have a sports star that is promoting one of their products. That's paid. That's marketing. It's Nike saying our shoes are the best. PR is other people. Independent, third-party people saying these guys are the best. And that's why I said I'm a PR guy, specialized in third-party validation. This is what third-party validation is. It's when you have an expert, when you have an influencer, when you have someone that is not related at all to your company, that is not paid to talk about your company or your product or yourself, that is going to say, those guys are really good. And that's the difference in between marketing and PR. Marketing is more directly paying for your audience, your stakeholders to know about you. PR is indirectly letting your stakeholders know that you exist and that you're good. Okay, so why do we communicate? We communicate to support business objectives. I'm talking about companies here. We could be talking about communicating for individuals, where you'll have your own objectives, but there we're talking about companies that are entering China. Why are you going to be communicating in China? And well, you're going to be communicating to support business objectives. I usually put business objectives in 3 main categories, which are going to be either sales or lead gen. Either investment or funding, you're looking for money to support your growth, or recruitment or partnership, you're looking for people or partners that are going to help you develop in China. And those are really the 3 main reasons you're going to communicate. And about 80% of it is going to be on sales and lead, because you're a business, you're trying to sell your products. And sometimes you might need investment to support that. And sometimes you might need to grow your team or to grow your partnerships to support that. So, you define a clear objective, a clear business objectives, and based on that clear business objectives, you're going to create a communication strategy. And based on that communication strategy, you're going to be creating a story that is going to be tailored for the different audiences that you want to target. And you might want to target, different audiences in sales or different audiences in investment or funding. And then you'll develop the content that goes with that. And the content can be anything. I mean, it's not necessarily an article or a blog that you're going to post. And I'll explain that a bit more in a second. And then you'll see how you're going to deliver that content to your audience, to your stakeholders. You'll evaluate the results. Did it work? Did it generate sales? Did it generate leads? Did it generate investment? If yes, could we have done better? What feedback do we get from the people it work with? What feedback do we get from the people it didn't work with? And we re-strategize and continue as we grow. All right, so there's a little story. I didn't used to explain pushing the penguins, or explain communications as pushing the penguins, and I was re-explaining it to Maddie yesterday. So a couple of years ago, I was meeting a client in Shanghai, a French semiconductor company, very, very fast growing French semiconductor company. And I got the opportunity to meet the CEO for the first time and spend half an hour with him to ask him, what would he like us to really help him with? So I could really understand what his business objective was in China. And he told me it's simple. We have a technology that is brilliant. And we need China to use this technology as a standard, to define our technology as an industry standard in China. And right now, there aren't a lot of people in China that actually decide what the standards are going to be. It's a couple government people, a couple industry association people, some very key industry leaders. They had identified about 7 people. We helped them identify 7 more people. So we had a list of 14 people. And you told me, those people, they talk, they discuss, they evaluate things, but they're difficult to make that jump to actually decide. So they're kind of like penguins on an iceberg. The penguins are going to walk around, they're going to chat, they're going to play until one of them is going to jump into the water. And once one has jumped into the water, all of the others are going to jump into the water with the first one. Well, what I need you to do, Simon, is to help me push the first one into the water. Then the others will follow. And that's, I thought, what was a really good way to explain why we communicate and what B2B communications would be here. A lot more than B2C. B2B because it's a much smaller network of people that are all very connected to each other. And when they understand, or when they see one of their leaders, what we could call one of the master influencers, because you've got more than one usually, that takes a stand and that says, I want to work with these guys, or I want to buy this product, or I want this technology to be a standard, then all of the other important people are going to follow through. And this is what communication is. It's helping to push the first one in the water across the line, wherever you want to put it. So how do we push that penguin? We push the penguin by understanding who they are. What do they look like? What type of people are they? Where are they geographically? All of that. So I'll explain a bit more in a sec with an example. What is a typical customer? Do a bit of research. What does your customer look like? Are there different types of customers? Build a persona. Who's the key decision maker? The key decision maker is not always the one that you think. It might not be the CEO. It might not be even the VP of something, the VP of product. It might be a mid-tier engineer. What are their pain points? Why do they need your solution? Who is going to be influencing them? Who are their master influencers? And where do they get their advice from? Where do they get their news from? I have usually 2 examples I go through when I go through this presentation. I'm only picking one here, which I think is a bit more relevant than the others. Ubisoft, which most of you should know as one of the leading game developers in the world, which we helped with a recruitment campaign in Shanghai a couple of years ago, and they were looking for 5 different types of people. Well, we had to map those five different types of people that they were trying to recruit, so we could do campaigns that would target each of these 5 different people. I'll go with Harting, which is a German industrial connectors company. So they do basically smart plugs for the rail industry, for manufacturing industry, for the wind energy industry, for a lot of different industries. It's not a small company. It's a big German SME. I think they've got about 8,000 people around the world, including 3,000 in China, because they've got 3 factories in China. And China is one of the most important markets because they work a lot with manufacturing and railway companies in China, and they have their own factories here. But they also have a lot of challenges in China because there's a lot of competitors that are kind of knockoff companies. There's at least two Chinese companies that do very similar products for a lot cheaper, but a bit lesser quality. And they came to us a couple of years ago to try to address that. So, how can we connect with the different stakeholders that we have and tell them that our product is better than the competition? I'll go with that example. First, we worked with them to define a persona. They had actually already defined globally who their main target audience was. And they had 3 different types of target audience. And they even put names on these. So this was done by Harting. It wasn't done by Influence Matters. So they've got Ulf, who's an installer. So he's the guy who's actually going to be installing machines and using the connector when he's installing the machine. And he can make the request to have that connector because it works better for him or it's going to be better quality. You've got the buyer who is going to always look at the better deal. And the better deal doesn't always mean the better price. It really means the better return on investment. So this product might be more expensive, but if it's better quality and is going to last 3 times as long, then it's a better value. And then you've got the designer. The designer is the person who's going to design a machine, who's going to design a factory, who's going to design a windmill, for example, another windmill, and use connectors in his designs. And those are the 3 main people that are going to request the purchase of the connectors from our client. Now, those are global, but we needed to look at, are those relevant in China? The types of people definitely relevant in the professions, let's say, definitely relevant in China. What do these people look like in China, and how are we going to connect with them in China? Well, we decided that there would be more cartoon characters in China. The reason for that is because in China, those people are a lot younger than they are in Germany, let's say, or they are in the US. You'll have much more experienced people outside of China. I can't say I'm really sure about how experienced these people are going to be in South Korea or in the rest of Asia, but at least in Europe, in North America, they're a lot more experienced than they would be in China. In China, they're going to be in their late 20s to early 30s, most of them. And they're going to be receptive to very different types of message and communications. They're going to need something that is appealing to them. And what appeals to Ulf in Germany is not going to appeal to the Chinese version of Ulf in China. So we actually went for cartoonification of this target audience and making them into much more active, much more young and enthusiast people that are looking for advancement in their career, because people in China are going to be looking a lot more for advancements in their career through the work that they do than and faster advancement in their career than outside of China in general. So we built those 3 profiles into cartoons, into something that would appeal a lot more to China and that we then could use on the different communication channels that connect with these people. And this is what I'm going to go over now, mapping the channels. Of course, when you're coming to China, the channels are going to be completely different from anything you're used to outside of China. And I mean completely different. As you know, the internet in China is closed in. The services that you use outside of China do not work in China, whether it's the Facebook, the YouTube, or the Asian platforms like Line or others. So you need to completely rethink how you're going to be connecting with those stakeholders, with those potential clients or investors or others in China. So you need to understand, what are the key media channels? What are the key influences in China? If you're not sure where to start, you're going to start looking at asking, looking at your competitors. What are your competitors doing? Where are they featured in China? What are similar companies or similar industry companies being featured in China? Of course, you'll need someone who can read the Chinese for you in there, but everyone can find an intern that is going to be able to do a bit of research on that. And then ask your audience once you're on these trips. Discovering through InnoA, for example, they will have a perspective, and then they will bring some experts like the ones that you're talking to today to give you an idea, and you can reach out to these guys after to ask. Just a quick overview of what the for Harting specifically, since they're in so many different target businesses, and when we want to map what the media ecosystem is for them, the media being extremely important here, there's everything from the mass and business media, which is not really important, but then you've got, for Harting, it is important as a media, but it's not very important for Harting. There's a subset of media in pretty much every vertical you can think of. And automation, like machine automation, factory automation. You'll have a whole group of media and influencers that are in that area, or electronics, or LED, or transportation, or energy. China is a huge media market and very fragmented media market. There are, just to give you an example, on semiconductor, which is one of the areas that we focus quite a bit on. Europe would have, let's say France is going to have 2 semiconductor focused media in French language. In China, there's over 100 that focus on that. In the US, you probably have 10 to 15, and again, 100 in China. And then in that subset, you're going to have different verticals. LED is actually part of semiconductor. It's just one group. And then you're going to have sensors, you're going to have a lot of others. So that takes a bit of time to map, to understand, and you'll do that research by looking at yourself, at your competitors, and asking your clients, potential clients in China. Then you've got the social media channels, and I can't go in just a few minutes over the social media channels in China. Even for B2B, they're a bit more limited than for B2C. And I'll focus only on 3 and maybe 4 and give you a very short intro here. You'll know about WeChat, of course, because everyone has to know about WeChat, WeChat being the default communication platform in China, including for companies. Having a WeChat account that is active and responsive is more important than having a website. Your communications are going to happen there, your interactions with your customers are going to happen on WeChat, and your official account, your company account, is where people are going to go first to get some information about who you are. And then it's a platform that's pretty powerful in terms of building relationships with your customers or your audience in China, as you can build quite a lot of tools inside it. You can actually design and develop, with some companies specialize in doing that, some mini programs or some mini apps or some mini websites in there that are going to replace any CRM that you would use in China. Same for campaigns, and same for Harting, for example. They have in WeChat an interactive product list that has 100,000 references, which they built. Then you've got the second platform, which is going to be Zhihu, which is becoming more and more important in building understanding with engineers and users of products in China. Zhihu is a knowledge platform. It's the equivalent of what Quora would be outside of China somehow. And there are a lot of influencers and a lot of specialists in a lot of different areas. We recently started engaging with payment technology specialists on Zhihu for one of our clients, because there's a couple threads, a couple discussions on payment technology, and more specifically on international payment technology. And then companies are getting involved in that. So companies like MasterCard are actually going to be involved in the discussions. They'll have Q&As, they'll have content responding to questions, and they'll have an own presence, companies kind of build a personality on Zhihu. And it's becoming one of the most important platforms to engage with customers customers in the sense of giving them information and giving them tutorials, let's say, on how they can use your product better. I've put Bilibili in there. I didn't put Weibo. Weibo is still kind of an interesting platform. We use it less and less because it's more focused on B2C, and it's more focused on social information and news rather than companies pushing anything there. So it's really not a priority. Bilibili is becoming more and more of a priority because it's the geek video platform. So it's probably what is closest to what YouTube is outside of China, where you can have your page and you can actually hold webinars on that page. We held one for one of our clients 2 days ago on Bilibili in fashion tech. And you can build a following and you can engage because the followers will actually be able to comment and ask questions about the content of the video, which is complicated on other platforms. And because it's a platform that is built on, originally it was built on sharing, on gaming, and on geek culture. A lot of the geeks that were, the young geeks that were originally on this platform are now the technical managers or the installers, which I've mentioned a bit higher in the Harting example. So they're in their late 20s and in deciding positions in their own companies. Okay. Now I've mentioned a bit that earlier, when we talk about content, we're not talking about specifically a blog, right? We're talking about the way you're going to distribute your story to the different channels and to different objectives in China. So you need to tailor the content to respond to your objective, to the target audience, to respond to their pain points, to fit the communication channel, and to the industry environment. And what I mean by that is how the industry is responding to any types of technology or any types of communication right now, which is changing all the time, depending on trade war, depending on trade agreements around the region, if we're looking at Asia, depending on the political agenda in China or the technology agenda in China, etc., etc. Going back to one of the content formats that I've mentioned before, we don't do a lot of those comics, but this is one way we wanted to tell a story for Harting, where you won't be able to read because it's too small or you can't read Chinese. But basically, the first it goes from top right to top right, then bottom left, bottom right. A story of how an installer on a high-speed train had an issue. His boss was not happy because he wasn't making any progress, so he's thinking of a solution. In comes the connector from Harting, which we also cartoonified. Look, I am the solution. The engineer finds the solution, fixes it, and his boss is happy and gives him a promotion. And that was super successful in the different areas where we used it, which we used on Harting's official WeChat account, for example. We created a whole story. We had a set of those, but for each of them, we created a whole story. With introductions to the product, with some tutorials on how to use the product, and then contact details for the sales people, of course. Then we had it on their Weibo account, because they have a Weibo account with kind of the same story, but in a shorter form, because Weibo is a shorter form type of channel. But then we also use those in some media interactions. We crafted a story that we discussed with some journalists that were very important, very influential in that area. They wrote a story about it and illustrated the story with the comics that we had created. Same with some influencers. So yes, this one is from a WeChat self media, so an influencer, a KOL, and we got them to do the same thing, write a story that would connect to the comics and connect to their audience, stakeholders of engineers in China, which again is a younger type of story than you would have outside of China. And then Harting themselves used it on their landing page. on their website, and they then used it. This is me with the team that created the comics at a trade show in Shanghai, where they actually printed the comics and put it on the trade show. So that piece of content, they maximized it and used it everywhere. And I think it's really important, even more for companies like most of yours, which are smaller companies and not very active in China. You need to maximize each of the stories, because you won't be able to have a new story every day, every 2 weeks. Or every week. So you're going to take one and you're going to use it on lots of different formats rather than try to create something new every time you want to say something. Okay, so how do you get started in China? And this is, those are tips that are usually more for new entrepreneurs in China, or companies that are really just landing in China and have one person here. Ideally, you have a person when you want to get started with your communications in China, mostly because you need to be able to collect the requests. If you start to do some communications, if you start to do some sales and some lead gen in China, you need to have someone who's going to be Chinese and able to collect those requests and respond to them. Otherwise, the communication is going to be a bit useless. So what you can do yourself is defining your main objectives. And those, as business owners, business leaders, is something that you should already know. When you come to China, you know, what do I want to achieve there? So then you can start figuring out what your story is going to be specifically for the Chinese market, because you need to adapt everything that you do in China. You cannot copy, paste, translate. That just isn't going to work here. Identify your audience, and I've mentioned it. Talk to people you know in China. Talk to people that you've met on tours like this. Talk to customers in China if you already have some, to understand who they are and how you can connect with them. Map their channels. And you can do a bit of research. As I said, one intern that speaks Chinese can help with that. And from my time at university in China, I know that there are a lot of Korean students that speak excellent Chinese, and I'm sure would be very good interns for this. And yeah, reach out to those channels and discuss with them what stories would be interesting for them. And when do you need to hire outside support? And outside support would be agencies like us, not right away. You will hire an outside support agency when you need to refine your message, when you need something that's going to be really a bit more professional, a bit more adapted, when you need to map a larger audience, when you need resources that understand how to map and where to go and be a bit more efficient in figuring out who you need to talk to. And then produce more professional content because outside support, professional marketing agencies, PR agencies, they specialize in creating content that is going to make an impact. And that's it, to reach more consistently and make a better impact. So there we are. I think that's roughly it. A very short introduction on how B2B companies can communicate in China. I think we've had a little bit more time for questions if anybody has, and I'd be happy to answer any of those.